And if we can increase that biomarker called phasing, we live longer. If you increase phasing, you live longer. You live with less fragility, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, etc. And what we're seeing as we research this is that we're increasing phase angle for every client after every session, and then we're increasing phase angle on a 90-day trend line.
Welcome to the Longevity Formula with Dr. Brandon Crawford. Let's explore the new era of wellness.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today is extremely exciting. Like literally, I'm blown away by the ability to talk to this man today because he is literally thinking on the same wavelength that I am, or vice versa. I mean, we're definitely on the same wavelength. I'll just say that much. But I was able to connect with Mike at this previous biohacker conference, and his technology just caught my eye from day one. My wife was able to use it. I was able to dissect this thing and just fell in love with it. We ordered this technology. It's on its way. But today we're able to speak with Mike McIntyre, founder of ARRC LED, and he's going to tell us more about what that stands for and what it means. But Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Dr. Crawford, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
So I guess just, if you don't mind, tell us about ARRC LED as a company. What does that stand for? And then we'll move from there.
Yeah, I had quite a bit of experience with light therapy dating back to about 2006. And we started seeing benefits and we said, wow, we got to create a full body chamber. And back in 2015, we came out with a full body chamber. We called it an advanced rejuvenation recovery chamber. So that's what ARRC stands for. And then, since 2015, we haven't spent a penny actually on advertising. We spent a lot of money on prototyping and changing and creating new stuff. And we're chasing you and your technology with what you just said about lasers and electrons and vibration and photons. So I love the same wavelength combination comparison.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Mike and I were just here, we literally just spoke for 30 minutes before hitting the record button. So we've already had some pretty deep conversations. So my mind is just reeling. So Mike likes to talk about energy, frequency, and vibration. I talk about photons, electrons, and frequencies, and we're essentially talking about the same thing. But can you give us your perspective, energy, frequency, and vibration, and why this technology is so important to you?
Right. I come from kind of a weird background or confluence. I come from the athletic side, also the spiritual side, meditation. When you're into meditation, you're into frequency. So as we started building these devices, our choice was to build a frequency device and then use energy as a carrier for that frequency. So, for example, photons or light becomes a carrier for different frequencies. Electromagnetic waves become carriers for different frequencies. We can run TENS, we can run scalar fields, etc. And each of these fields can then carry into the body a frequency. So the field itself is beneficial to the body. Photobiomodulation is extraordinarily beneficial to a person's, systemic, what's happened to them. But now we can take the basis of photobiomodulation, we can shape it with frequency and create different types of effects and outcomes. And the ultimate, again, I come from the spiritual side. The ultimate is that I believe we can really have an influence on consciousness. When people get out of our machine, they're smiling, they're happy. We see people that are super high and super high energy, a little bit hyper, a little bit crazy, and they come out and they're smiling, their energy goes down a little bit. They're more normalized. We have people that kind of dead, just low energy, et cetera, and they come out and they're smiling and they're happy. So there's a bigger picture here. Yeah, a bigger picture. Yeah. Our mission statement, sick person in, healthy person out, probably very similar to yours, right? So
right.
We got to do things different to get there.
Totally. And I completely agree with you that there's a bigger picture here. And, we all understand in this concept of photobiomodulation or this field of photobiomodulation that, different wavelengths stimulate different chromophores, which are receptors for light. However, we have to understand that, yes, we're a big bag of cells, but we're also a bunch of atoms and subatomic particles buzzing around, you know?
Right.
And I always point to the research that came out of the University of Texas that talks about how photons have a preferential interaction with electrons, right? So we know that the photons like to interact with electrons. And so if we understand this more from a quantum physics perspective, then that really truly opens up the possibilities, right, of what we can do with this type of technology. Don't you agree?
No question. When you mention quantum, I mean, our belief is that all disease starts from the quantum field, all healing starts from the quantum field. So, if we want to get to the root cause of a lot of diseases, a lot of conditions, yeah, it starts with how do we imprint the quantum field with a blueprint that basically says, this is where you want to go, Mr. Customer, Mr. User. How do we take you further?
Right.
I love it. That's you mentioned quantum. That's it. That's
right. Well, one thing I want to point to for the audience, right? So our audience is going to be kind of diverse, right? So I've got home users, biohackers, whatever you want to call that crowd, but then I also have patients and people like really wanting to, get over a disease process or need help along the way. But then I also have physicians of all types, whether it be functional neurologists, chiropractors, functional medicine practitioners, et cetera. So I think it's important for people to understand this is not just a red light bed, right? This is not just one of those, red infrared type of beds. It was extremely apparent to me when I was at the conference. Can you give some concepts about, or some ideas, whatever? How can you compare and contrast your bed versus like a red light bed?
Yeah, I mean, we have multiple. First of all, we have multiple operating systems on our machine, and one of those operating systems is called self-programming. We can pick the wavelength combination and target it with a pulsing combination and change the time or the dose on there. I've got one of those buttons on that is RIR for red infrared, which means we can do what everybody else out there is doing. So on one of the 4 operating systems, we've got a button. You can press that button. You can do that. We can duplicate. I won't mention names. We can duplicate the machines that are out there. In our offices, we don't do that. You don't necessarily feel it, right? You don't feel what's going on. What we feel in our chambers is frequency. And I think you mentioned that when your wife used it, she said she felt like she vibrated, right?
Yes,
so that's the idea.
She said her whole body was vibrating. Absolutely. Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean, I love it. I love it. Thank you. That's what we want to do. And we can, when you get out of a traditional red infrared bed, again, the benefits are awesome. You're going to increase cellular energy, which means those cells get healthier. They live longer. That cascades down tissues, organ systems. They're healthier. That's good for you. Systemic reduction in inflammation throughout the body. That's good for you. Analgesic effect on nerves. That's good for you. But you don't necessarily feel it. So the question is this is exactly what you alluded to. How do we go further? How do we, if our mission statement is sick person in, healthy person out, we have to do more than what's currently available. All right. So what does that look like? And without getting, too deep into technology, basically, we believe that we've created the tech, the system that 5 years from now, when research and regulatory prove out that XYZ is going to work, we've already built a system that can do XYZ. Okay, so we've already got the system. We've already got the technology to be able to do. I mean, if we can pulse to 400,000 hertz on our lights and 5 million hertz on our plasma generator, we can run harmonics in the system. The capabilities are out of this world. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent there. So
no, that's good. I love tangents. When I lecture, I'm known for my tangents, so I welcome them. Would you mind explaining to the audience the different wavelengths, or do you not like to disclose the wavelengths?
No, wavelengths are not a secret. So dating back to 2006, in 2006, it was really funny. It's kind of the wild west of light therapy. People were using Peacock and saying Peacock does X, Y, Z, and here's your amber, and this is better for this. And, and in over the years, what happened is some of those wavelengths fell out. So, for example, the 600s, not so good. Blue, for example, is awesome in what it can do, but blue can also create damage, right? It photoages the skin and it can damage your retina. So blue is not really your best choice. We use 6 different wavelengths. I use a green, and I love that pre-conversation before we got on. Green's a love frequency. Green basically charges water, right? We can charge water with green. We can do things with green. And we use that specific green that gets us there, the 528 hertz. The 2 reds that are absorbed into the body the most are 633 and 660. We use those 2. We could use 1 red, but I believe also that light carries information into the body. There's probably an epigenetic effect on it. So whereas red infrared may be absorbed into that same chromophore, the cytochrome C oxidase, which creates XYZ benefits, I believe that there's more going on than we know about. Okay. So we run 633, 660 red, 810, 850 near infrared. That's all absorbed in the cytochrome C oxidase. The green is absorbed in the chromophore, the heme and oxyhemoglobin. So basically, we're supercharging the blood. With the red infrared, we're supercharging the cells. And then I use a longer infrared specifically to structure the water in the cell membrane. So this is absorbed into the water in the cell membrane. Then we run a frequency into that with the idea that if we can charge or structure the water in the cell membrane, we're going to increase a biomarker called phase angle. And if we can increase that biomarker called phase angle, we live longer. If you increase phase angle, you live longer. You live with less fragility, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, etc. And what we're seeing as we research this is that we're increasing phase angle for every client after every session. And then we're increasing phase angle on a 90-day trend line. So, you would expect that somebody gets out of a light bed, their body is energized. And if we're going to measure the energetic charge, it's going to increase. But if we're increasing it over 90 days, that's a pretty cool. So 6 different wavelengths. We target 3 chromophores. Each of those 3 chromophores has a different benefit. For example, green hits the cannabinoid pain pathway. Red infrared is analgesic on nerves. Green works more for migraines, whereas red infrared, has that analgesic effect on nerves. Green works better for like fibromyalgia from a pain relief standpoint. Green is antiviral, antibacterial. In 2021, back in 2018, when we were doing this, we kind of got laughed at by some of the leading. I had some of the leading researchers of the world working with us. They're like, why would you use green? Nobody uses green. You should use blue back then. And now those studies are out there, and they're showing that green is actually outperforming red infrared.
Absolutely.
And again, it's fun talking to people in Europe, and it's like, yeah, we believe that green is antiviral, antibacterial. And they go, no, we've known that for years. So
we know it absolutely.
Yeah, kind of fun. I love what you're doing in your laser.
Man, I'll tell you, so I got to have a good conversation with you at the conference. Of course, we were both there representing our technologies, and so you were focused on what you were doing. I was focused on what I was doing, but I just knew from that brief conversation I had with you, I was like, this guy understands this, right? And I had no idea what your background was. I didn't know, I didn't even know you were the one that really developed the technology at that point in time, but I knew I was like, this guy understands it. And it's amazing to speak with you because it's literally like listening to my own thoughts, right? Even with the inclusion of 528 hertz and how this has to be important because this is the frequency of love, but beyond that, this is influencing our DNA, our RNA at levels that honestly have not even been fully elucidated yet in the literature, but it does. And yes, it absolutely has an antiviral, antibacterial, et cetera effect. But how does it do it? Well, it's just really improving your ability, your own body's innate ability to really overcome these things, right? Where violet, for example, can literally just kill a pathogen. Yes, I believe green will kill the pathogen, but I believe green really just helps your own innate body, your own innate energy to really just overcome these things better at the epigenetic, genetic level. It's just quite amazing. And then 528 hertz ability to structure water, like you were talking about earlier, is, it's there. It's amazing. We can do so many things. I love your answer to, you're literally the only person. And I think we know a lot of the same researchers, and I'm collaborating with some of the same researchers that you've actually worked with in the past right now. And it's interesting because you're literally the only person to tell me I used this near infrared wavelength because I don't want to overheat the tissue, but I still want to influence exclusion zone water.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has ever understood that.
You're
that
the first person.
with.
You're the first person I've heard of that's actually doing it outside of what we're doing. So very good.
Yes.
Very cool.
I'm telling you, I love your technology. Like, I'll say it again, we ordered on the spot, like at the conference, we said, we have to have this. I am so excited to get it into the office, but can you take us down the path? Can we have a little conversation here about resonant frequencies? Can we talk about like how your device can produce these frequencies and what can we see as a result from that? Can we have that conversation?
Yeah, great segue. So we have the benefits of photobiomodulation in that they're going to do XYZ to the body. That's good. And then basically what happens, you're doing it with a laser, we're doing it with LEDs. Essentially what we're doing is we're using these wavelengths of energy to carry specific frequencies into the body. And an example of a low frequency might be, they found that 40 hertz can break up the amyloid plaques that are forming in the brain for somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's. Okay. So we can use photobiomodulation, or we can team that up with other energies to strengthen that pulse to go into the brain and basically, create that effect for it. So again, what happens with frequency is it allows us to be extremely targeted in what we do, extremely targeted. So for example, with resonant frequency, and I'll quote the research that was done at Skidmore, and there's a TED Talk on that we could send a link to. But basically what they found is that cancer cells have resonant frequencies between 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. And there are now two different companies that I know of, there may be more, but two companies I know of that have phase 3 approval with the FDA to use resonant frequency to basically vibrate cancer cells to death. So resonant frequency, if you're old like me, you remember those commercials where somebody would sing and they'd break a wine glass. So basically the frequency of their voice is very specific. If you're off by a hertz, it may not work, okay? The frequency of their voice creates an uncontrollable vibration in the liquid crystals in the wine glass, which the wine glass shatters. All right. What they did in this research from Skidmore is they found that, they went with the hypothesis that they could break apart pathogens, and they proved it. And this was actually done back in 1920 with Royal Rife. So he was successful in 20, and then his business kind of got shut down and destroyed. And
kind of got shut down and destroyed.
Kind of.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Trying to be soft. But
right.
Anyway, 100 years later, and this is cool. Okay, this is the evolution. It's awesome, right? Companies are using this right now, and they're getting approval from the regulatory agencies to use this. So the point is that resonant frequency is very specific. We can target a specific pathogen, a specific cell, and we can break that specific pathogen or cell up with that frequency without affecting anything else in the body. So there's no side effects to it. So basically, and I'm gonna quote, and I may be off a little bit on this. And again, this is based on the research. We don't. I'll say this right up front. We do not treat cancer. I'm talking about research. But
sure.
Essentially, what could happen is you could run, for example, maybe 169,000 hertz for leukemia. And what they showed in their research is that they were breaking apart 25 to 42% of leukemia cells. They did that in 3 minutes, as high as 60%, and then they reduced the recurrence of leukemia by 65%. So that's resonant frequency. that's the future of medicine. Albert Einstein said future medicine be the medicine of frequencies. All right.
Yep.
So it also required an 11th harmonic. And that 11th harmonic of 169,000 is 1.859 million. All right. So we built in our system the capability to do all of this. Is it available right now? Absolutely not. Just because we can't from a regulatory standpoint on some conditions, on other conditions we can. So there's a lot of things we can do with this machine now, but also 5 years from now, when the research proves out and regulatory allows it, this system can actually do these things. So
yeah,
sorry, I went a little too far out there.
No, not at all. I don't think you went too far out there at all. I mean, this is all information that, people need to understand. And these are all just data points. I mean, whether from the past, present research, whatever, I mean, these are factual statements. You're not giving conjecture.
Yeah.
Like, this is all factual information. And it's exactly, it's essentially what I've been trying to, and what we've developed in the handheld lasers, so that we can, point, target, like specifically target conditions and things in the body, obviously promoting health and healing and all the things. But I mean, it's the same thing. So I'm curious, because we've talked about a few things before we started recording. And again, I understand we don't treat cancer. You don't treat cancer. Your device is not designed to treat cancer, but you have had anecdotal evidence of people that had cancer that went into the bed and then came out over a period of time, and they no longer were diagnosed. That's true, correct?
Yeah, we had 2 cases of stage 4 lung cancer in the last 9 months. And I actually call cancer contraindication when we use our light bed. We recommend people don't do it, right? But people ignore us and they do it anyway. So and the doctor says, this is a great story. I mean, the doctor did a scan of this gentleman and he kind of did the scan. He's like, He goes, I got to do this again. So he scanned him again. Scanned him a third time, and the wife of the gentleman that had the stage 4, the nodules in his lung, she said the doctor came back, he had tears in his eyes. He goes, I don't know what happened, but everything's gone. That's the only thing they did different was a light bed. So,
right.
So that
it's just amazing.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. The typical rebuttal when that type of thing happens for us, and it's usually like some type of neurological disorder or a genetic disorder where the brain's not supposed to develop or something like that. They'll come back and say, well, I guess we misdiagnosed you. That's always funny. You spoke about eczema, and interestingly enough, I love your discussion on eczema and how it's really just an outward representation of what's going on inward inside the body. And my 13-year-old actually developed some eczema after we took a trip to Barcelona this past Christmas, and he got exposed to nickel, right? And so we got blood. We did some blood draws and found the nickel issue, because I wasn't able to figure out why did he just develop this eczema. Interestingly enough, I was able to get one of our prototype lasers, the green laser, and I had never used green on eczema, or at least not one of my lasers. And I used it one time and actually reduced his eczema, I would say, by about 40% just overnight.
Wow.
And that was, that was amazing. But tell me about some of your cases with eczema. I know you had some really good stories about that, of people going in and out of the bed.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, so skin is a visual representation of what's happening to the entire body. The way we define photobiomodulation is that we're changing the bioenergetics literally under the cell, because we do some stuff with, quantum field imprinting, et cetera. And then what happens is that cell is going to get healthier. As the cell gets healthier, the tissues, organs, systems get healthier. As the tissues, organs, systems get healthier, basically the body is better able to react to different things that are happening to it. So eczema, it's visual. You see it, right? It's out there. You see it when somebody's broken out. So we have I've got a photo from Bill Hanks at Human, where he showed a woman's legs with, just really, really bad with eczema. 8 weeks later, she's off meds, everything. What's happened is, again, we've changed the bioenergetics of the cells. The eczema is gone. It's a visual representation, potentially, of what's happening with your liver, your gallbladder, your brain, your skeletal system, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just an external representation of what's also happening internally. And that's the hard thing. You know this in your practice is it's hard to go out there and pinpoint to somebody, we're making changes in your liver's getting healthier, right? It's hard to be able to pinpoint that. So it's great to have these visual representations, eczema, shingles, psoriasis, et cetera. We see shingles gone in like 3 days. That's cool. That's cool. So
yeah, that's super cool. We didn't talk about this before, but this kind of just popped into my mind because so I'm a clinician, right? So I do collaborate with both worlds. I get to talk with the people in the hospital that, really think that using this type of technology is just, but fortunately they're collaborating with us, right? Because I do get to treat some of the most, dire conditions on the planet. They come in from all over. And then I also have really great collaborations with holistic doctors and functional medicine doctors and people like that. But a question that I get on both sides is this discussion about depth of penetration of light, right? And so, and I talk about this on multiple levels, right? I always go through the discussion of, okay, we have primary effects, and that's really what the research is talking about when you talk about 5 millimeter, 10 millimeter depth of penetration, et cetera. But you also have this concept, again, going into the quantum field about how a photon interacts with an electron and then generates another photon, and you get this cascade of events. That photon may in fact, or that initial energy input may in fact travel through the entire body, right? So do you have any discussion points on this?
Yeah. So, a great example. We came out with a light bed in 2015. That light bed wasn't so good, right? It wasn't so good. And it wasn't very powerful. And the infrared probably wasn't powerful enough to penetrate into the skull, which means if you're talking about your primary effect, right? The primary effect of the light on the mitochondria inside the brain, we weren't getting that penetration. But we saw so many instances, all dating back to 2015, with this machine that wasn't really that powerful, where PTSD, concussive trauma. One woman came into the clinic was in Cincinnati. She said, my son is a changed man. He had a lot of brain fog. He played football, so he had a lot of concussions. He had a lot of brain fog. He wasn't happy. He was having a hard time studying. And after 3 weeks in the light bed, it got rid of that. And we see this from a collegiate level, high school level, collegiate level, and we're in, a pretty healthy share of the NFL right now. My point in saying that is what you're suggesting is, we have a holographic field around our body. And if we can affect any part of it, we affect the whole. So the question becomes, and I don't know the answer, and you probably know more than I do, but the question becomes, is it the systemic effect on the body that's sending healthy blood up into the brain? Or is it, because we know in these original cases that we're affecting something without that primary influence. So, could it be, I love that you mentioned epigenetic. I mean, I believe that every wavelength has its own information pattern, and the body looks for that information. That's why we're seeing these things happen that the research doesn't predict. Whatever. I mean, that's my theory. That doesn't mean that's right, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, I actually just went into this discussion in a conference I was in Southern California this past weekend. And it was highly educated people. I mean, I'm talking, I had neurologists that were Harvard grads. I had Cornell University researchers, very, very intelligent people asking me some really good questions. And, they were really like truly trying to figure this stuff out. And one thing I pointed to was the first law of photobiology states that we have to have a receptor for the light. You know what I mean? And so this whole field was established around this concept of, well, if we cannot identify the receptor, then there must not be an effect, right? Yeah. And I think that set the field up incorrectly, because I think that photobiomodulation then was put inside of a box. And I believe that the things that you're talking about, the things that you have developed, the things that I've developed, we're outside of the box, because just because we cannot identify a receptor does not mean that there is not some type of effect, right?
Absolutely. You're right on. I mean, that's the best way to describe that. I appreciate it. I'm gonna use that from now on. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Good. Fantastic. So I was able to contribute something, because I've mainly just been learning from you so far.
I'm learning from you. So it's all.
Oh,
good.
Man.
Good.
One way that I've always talked about frequencies, and I know this kind of goes back a little bit in our discussions, but I usually talk about frequencies like languages. So if I'm speaking Arabic and you're speaking Spanish, we're both still saying words, but you may not be understanding me and I'm not understanding you. And that's really what frequencies are about, right? I mean, it's really about dialing in to the language of the cells, to the language of the body that is needed to effectively communicate. And if you think about the body like a world, maybe this part of the world speaks Spanish and this part of the world speaks English and this part of the world, right? I mean, is that a kind of a good way to kind of think about how frequencies influence body parts or tissue systems or whatever? I mean, is that an accurate statement, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really accurate statement, and maybe a way to take that a bit further is if we take a look at, I work with a lot of European technology from a scanning standpoint, and they will go back and say, for example, I've got a physical manifestation in the body, and they will go back and take a look at the emotional charges or the information fields. And what they'll do is they'll use frequency to change that emotional pattern or that information field. And then that cascades back into the effect that we see inside the body. So yeah, taking it kind of a different angle, but frequency from a languaging standpoint, maybe we're not just talking to different physiological areas, maybe we're talking to,
right.
Emotional fields, mental fields, et cetera. Again, our belief is all disease starts in a quantum field. So how do we get to that base blueprint, that base information structure? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I guess another big differentiator, and I don't remember if you already spoke about it, is this ability that you can actually scan the body.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to describe that a little bit further? Because I think that's actually a ginormous differentiator in your technology.
Yeah, so we actually use two different scanners, and one is based on European technology. It's actually 4 different countries, and they took those scans from 4 different countries. They assembled into a single scanner, and it actually uses TENS points. So TENS, and then we use points on the wrist or points on the feet. So it'll use microcurrent. It'll send microcurrent. It will read the body, and it will pick up. So basically what we do, for example, with the Elysium device, that's our kind of top tier device. What we want to do is we turn it into a protocol. And the idea behind the protocol is that, we're going to fill you up, Mr. User, with energy, with PMF energy, with electromagnetic energy, with photobiomodulation energy, with scalar field energy. We're going to fill you up with energy. What we don't want to do is fill you up and have this energy running down a channel and hit a block. So the first thing that we do is we have a scanner that will identify energetic blocks in the body, and it will clean those blocks up. So now we have free flow of energy. And typically what we see, a person pre-scan, they're going to have 30, 35 energy blocks in the body. And then you'll be able to see on the scanner, you can see it hitting with the different frequencies. So, it's like it works XYZ, 4.2 hertz, 8.6 hertz, et cetera, et cetera. And then what it'll do is they'll say, I've done everything I can for you, and it will scan you again. So it's kind of like artificial intelligence will scan you again and say, okay, let me try these frequencies this time. And what we found is that the optimal time period from scanning and augmentation standpoint is about 11 minutes. And again, we start at about 30, 35 blocks. We end up typically with 2 to 5 blocks. Then we can put somebody in a chamber. Now we have free flow of energy, free flow of frequency, vibration, et cetera, in the body. So that creates a better outcome. There is a second scanner that we have on Elysium, which is the application is still in development. It's really close. Really, in fact, we may have it this week, where you can speak into your phone. The phone will take a voice scan. That voice scan will then send a signal into a black box inside the device. That black box will read that voice scan, and essentially what it will do is send into the body via PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field. It'll send a kind of like a scalar information pattern into the body based on your needs at this time and place. So in other words, it scans you, it says you need this, and it will hit you with these specific codes for you and this particular time and place. So basically, we're personalizing what the light bed looks like. We're scanning you to clean you up pre-session. Then when you're in the chamber, we're actually creating the perfect mix for you based on your bioenergetic scan at that moment in time. So.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And just, kind of for the audience's sake, this is not necessarily far-fetched, for those that are not really, in line with what we're talking about here. But the idea of using voice as a diagnostic, I actually know of a few different research projects going on right now that are using voice to actually try and diagnose things like Parkinson's way, way, way earlier than, even than ever thought possible, just to be honest. I mean, even before symptoms were, no symptoms are present. So this concept of using the voice as a diagnostic is in use in multiple ways. There's so much information that comes out. Same thing with the eyes, same thing with multiple different things here. So there's ways that you can scan the body and gain tons of information from. So it's amazing. So for the audience, is there like a target audience, or like who could really benefit from your technology? And the simple answer may just be everyone. I mean, but is there like a certain person that you developed this technology for? What do you think about that?
I think the everyone is more applicable. 2015, we came up with a trademark. The trademark is feel, think, look, and perform better. So from a feeling better standpoint, A, you have more energy, B, you have less pain. So there's that whole crowd of people that just, I've got entrepreneurs that will jump in the machine at 2:00 every afternoon. They're working 7 days a week, and they just do it to rebuild their energy, replenish their energy. Mm-hmm. We're in a healthy portion, for example, of the NFL. So now we have athletes, super high level athletes, who are using the machine because it will increase single rep max, total reps prior to failure, total reps in a given time period, and it protects the athlete against damage that happens from competition. We have people using, so if you think about that from an athletic standpoint, if you're stronger, faster, and got more endurance, that's good. That's a positive.
It's very good.
From a pain relief standpoint, if we're changing the bioenergetics of the body and somebody's suffering from a disease, then the body's going to be better able to resolve that disease. And we see this stuff happening. We're not treating the disease. We're changing the bioenergetics of the body so the body can be healthier. The other side of the coin is, like I said, what we're seeing with phase angle from a longevity standpoint. If we're increasing phase angle in our testing for every client after every session, then basically those clients that are using this, and the question then becomes, when do you start that? Do you start that at 18 years old or 20 years old or 50 years old or whatever? It's never too late to start. It could be too early to start. So there's some research out there that suggests we don't want to do this prior to age 18. And
Okay.
basically, if somebody asks us, what we'll say is, if this person has an issue that needs to be resolved, then yeah, I would use the photobiomodulation. If they're healthy and everything, then I would say no, just let them, grow naturally without any influence. So, but
Interesting.
the
So,
I'm sorry, let me go. So it'll increase collagen
yeah.
elastin production by 138 to 211%. That's in peer-reviewed, published research. If we can thicken and tighten skin, we're going to get rid of wrinkles. We see, and I'm not a great example, but from a hair standpoint, I hear from, please, no. I hear from, in fact, this came out twice as two women came back and they said, my eyelashes look like they did back in high school. We see hyperpigmentation, spots on people's skin, that goes. So again, feel, think, look, perform. It's all aspects of life. And it's probably really good for us right now because we're just not getting what we might have gotten in the past, from sunlight and, just natural resources. So
Sure.
it's a pretty broad application.
Right. Well, so two different segues or questions off of that. So the comment about not using this technology, perhaps if you're younger than 18 years old, is that really just exercising an overabundance of caution? Or do you think someone like myself, a physician that is well versed in this, that's seeing pathologies, brain injuries, developmental issues, genetic disorders, that population could very much benefit from this technology, correct? But it should be under the guidance of a physician. Agree?
Exactly. So
Okay,
yeah,
fantastic.
always
Just
under the
wanted to
guidance of a
clarify.
physician. And again, there was one study that, and I cannot find it, but where they suggested that somebody under the age of 18, it may affect their growth. One study, I can't find it. I'm doing research. I'm trying to find it. But we, as you just said, super, super restrictive. In fact, I've gotten in trouble on how restrictive our contraindication forms are. Because
Right. Well,
I'd rather be careful than we don't want to
yeah,
take any
no,
chances.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, we live in a very litigious society, and the FDA is looking over our backs and
Right.
all that. So I get it. And of course, we want people to be
You
safe
want to do the right
and
thing.
whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you made me think about this concept because I say that we're in a mal-illuminated world. So you just kind of alluded to this concept of maybe we didn't get proper sun exposure, right? Or maybe we are getting bombarded with the wrong type of light. You know what I mean? You mentioned earlier that blue has been proven to damage the retina, and it has, and the retina is diencephalic tissue, which is just an extension of the brain. Therefore, we can conclude that this high frequency white and blue light then is deleterious to brain tissue and nervous tissue. So do you think that now more than ever is when we should be turning to these types of technologies and leveraging the correct or beneficial aspects of light? Don't you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And take it a step further. If we take a look at autoimmune issues, inflammation kind of root cause of 70% of mortality diseases. And photobiomodulation has a systemic reduction in inflammation. And if we put somebody in a light bed, we're getting a huge reduction. So it's about the absence of maybe natural light, but it's also about the foods that we eat, the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the toxins our bodies are taking on. So the circulatory benefits of photobiomodulation to circulate toxins out of the body, that adds a whole new level to reduce the inflammatory responses in the body. Like I said, there's so many. It's like an orchestra, and all these little things create benefits within the body. You can't really pick out one, but we've got this beautiful music that comes out at the end. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I love the orchestra concept. When I talk about this, I usually talk about it like all of the people playing the instruments, right? All the different instruments represent food, water, toxicities, like all of these different things. However, I usually reference the composer, like the person up there directing all of this as light, right? And so,
Well,
because light can really set in motion alterations in your circadian biology, et cetera. Now, I know there's genetic components to circadian biology and metabolic components like timing of food and all this kind of stuff. But light has such a huge influence on our body, not just from the suprachiasmatic nucleus, then directing circadian rhythms from there, but even beyond that. So that's usually, how I talk about this. But you're right, man. This is orchestra. This is an orchestra. Life is a symphony, and it takes so many different things to come in, and work together to really produce this beautiful life, this beautiful music. Absolutely.
Would you agree that?
Mhm. Go
Would
for it.
you? It's like if we can just create even just one positive change in the body, everything in the body changes. I mean, that's my view. So every little singular change that we make creates a cascade down into the health of the whole body. So yeah. Anyway,
Absolutely. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, sometimes just the minor, what seems like a minor change can actually produce like life altering things, right? I mean, it doesn't always have to be this huge, ginormous thing. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm curious, do you have a lot of physicians right now adopting this technology, or is it largely, like you mentioned, the elite athletes, the CEOs, people like that? Do you see this really being sought after by physicians at the moment?
I think it's really cool. I see definitely the chiropractic industry is adopting it. The medical industry I've got a number of people in the medical industry who have one foot in modern medicine and they're taking one foot out into alternative. And alternative is partially us. It's a lot of different treatments because they want to bring it back in. So I think we're at a really cool phase right now where traditional medicine is taking on these sort of alternative out there technologies. And you mentioned it from the beginning. Basically, we're looking at photons, electrons, and vibration, right? Is that what you?
Yep. Photons, electrons, and frequencies, baby. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the formula, and I think that's the formula. However, it's delivered is absolutely being adopted in medical, and yeah, I think it's cool. I think we're especially the biohacking conference that we were at. I met and you met so many incredible people there that, a few years back, somebody looked at our devices and says, you'll change medicine with this device. And my ego kind of went, oh, wow, that's cool.
Right.
It's already changed. It's already changed.
Absolutely.
And that was so evident at the conference.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. Even just this past weekend, having these, again, highly educated people, very indoctrinated into traditional medicine, even being willing to have this conversation with me about, photobiomodulation, but then even going into resonant frequencies and wavelengths and all of these different, concepts. I think it's important that we, as industry leaders, right, you and I, are able to talk about this from a scientific perspective with factual information, with data points, right? The anecdotal things are so important because that then leads the research, right? So the anecdata, if you will, is extremely important. And that is what we need to use to then lead those conversations of, well, why did that happen? How can I explain this? Right. So the science is important, and it's folding and it's building in front of our eyes. We're seeing this. It's very apparent that this is important, and we're going to change medicine. We already have changed medicine with it. Where can people go to learn more about this technology that you've developed?
Well, I mean, our website, ARRC LED, Apple Advanced Rejuvenation Recovery Chamber, arcled.com. We've got quite a bit on there, quite a bit of research on there. And then we have a location finder. So basically, if you want to go out and try a system, there's multiple systems that we have out there. But if you want to go out and try a system, or if somebody's interested, in fact, we'll put a link on your page to kind of talk about some of the different technologies that we have. So
Perfect.
Create that link for you that
Okay,
you can put out to people. Yeah.
Perfect. And then for the people listening, I know that you were saying you were going to create a link for our listeners in case, they wanted to purchase a device or something like that. So that information will be in the show notes. We'll make sure to give that to everyone, because I think this is the forefront of medicine. I mean, I don't care who you are, like, this is the forefront of medicine. So if you are listening, you want to adopt this, whether it's in your office, whether it's in your home, maybe you are that high level executive or whatever, we'll have a link for you with discounts, etc., that we'll put in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. Mike, is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience, tell the world, any other things that you'd like to discuss today?
I think we did really good. Just thank you. I mean, I appreciate having the opportunity to be on and talk about this. And I appreciate your insights. So, it's cool to see people leading this out there, especially reaching into medicine and getting the tentacles in there. So appreciate that.
Well, and that's the mission, right? My overarching mission is to change global healthcare. And this is a big reason why we're actually opening our center in Dubai, because I've been able, myself and my partner, Kyle Daigle, we've been able to speak with the Ministry of Health in the UAE twice now, actually more than twice now. He's there currently on the ground. And so once we get the center going, I mean, we have hospital systems there that are talking to us, wanting to incorporate these things. And this is how we're going to change healthcare. I mean, we need to get this out to as many people as possible. And the ultimate goal is really just to make life better and to help as many people as we can. So that's really the goal. And I really enjoyed this conversation with you, because I literally, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show right now and you're in front of me, but I've literally never spoken to anyone that understood this on the level that you do. So I really appreciate your insight. I thoroughly appreciate what you've developed, and I cannot wait to have this incorporated with our patient base. So I'm really eager and looking forward to that. So everyone out there, thank you for listening today. I hope that you gained some knowledge on this extremely important concept, this extremely important topic. I hope that you understand this to a better degree so that you can leverage this information to help you or help someone that you love. If this information can help someone that you know and love, please share this information with them. That is why we're doing this. We're doing this to help people. So again, Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. And everyone out there in the audience, check out the show notes, man, because you're going to want to check out this technology. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
We hope today's episode has inspired you to take that next step toward your best self. Remember, the path to longevity is paved with small, daily decisions. Your journey is unique, and every step, every choice, brings you closer to your ultimate vision of a healthier, happier life. For more insights, tips, and resources, visit drbrandоncrawford.com.